Christmas Cookies by Kenneth0505. Like most folks, I have certain traditions that I look forward to on Christmas Eve. But it's not the presents, caroling, or snow. It's Mama's famous homemade Christmas sugar cookies. Now, before anyone judges, they are the best cookies in the world, and I pride myself as being a cookie expert. From the 1st of December until Christmas Eve, that is all I think about. The little snowman-shaped goodness covered in frosting. I have to work most holidays, so I can only pop in and have to get right back to work. But as I made my way to the kitchen, you can imagine my disappointment, as there were only store-bought chocolate chip, pathetic excuses for cookies left. How inconsiderate can you be? As I turned to leave, I had a thought cross my mind. Freakin' Steve, I whispered to myself. He is the only one who would do something this vile. Maybe what I did next was a little harsh, but the little prick needed to be taught a lesson. I crept up to his room, and to my surprise, I found him waiting, like he knew I was coming. Then the vile little imp laughed. "What's the matter, fat boy?" And I snapped. That would be the last bit of joy he would have for the night. "Screw you, old man," he growled, spitting blood on me and the floor as he spoke. I didn't mind. I'm dressed all in red anyway, and bad little boys need to be corrected. I leaned in close to him, twisting the sharpened candy cane in his chest. "Where are the cookies, Steve?" I asked rather calmly, I thought. They're in the drawer," he said. I could tell it pained him so to tell me, but I was going to get my sweet little cookies one way or another. As I left the house, delicious morsels of heaven in hand, I thought, everything's as it should be. Even if I'm a little behind on schedule, it was worth it. As for Steve, he will live, and I, being the jolly old elf that I am, gave him a second chance at the nice list, which shouldn't be so hard, given he doesn't have a tongue to say such horrible things anymore. Well, Christmas Eve is coming, and I can hear those sweet treats calling my name. Remember, kids, don't skimp out on the jolly old fat man, because one of the perks of being me is no one will believe you if you say Santa attacked you. Just some food for thought. Have a Merry Christmas. Killer Santa by the Prowler. Christmas is supposed to be a great time of year, especially for the little ones. In 1977, however, the boys and girls of Archer's Falls, a sleepy little town in upstate Massachusetts, did not. Those poor children awoke early Christmas morn to the sight of lit-up Christmas trees in their living rooms, adorned with their parents' severed body parts as decorations, and bloody presents under their trees, containing the rest of the chopped-up parts. Screams could be heard from the homes alongside Evergreen Tree Lane, as each child discovered the gruesome scenes. One small eyewitness claimed to have spotted the person responsible for these heinous acts, fleeing their home, and said it was none other than Santa. Evidence of emptied glasses of milk and half-eaten Christmas cookies substantiated the wee eyewitnesses' statements. Little did they know, but the town had just been visited by Mad Nick, the Killer Santa. Full name, Nicholas Santoro, eventually found to be a deranged department store Santa who finally had enough. Enough of the whiny children, enough of their rude, pushy parents, and just had enough of Christmas altogether. So that Christmas Eve, he picked the liveliest, most festive neighborhood and commenced his bloody spree. House to house, he broke in with his candy cane shiv, then proceeded to hack and chop up his parental victims, while the little tots slept in their beds, no doubt dreaming of Santa and presents. In total, he killed 10 people that night and ruined many a family. He was found later that morning when he stabbed and robbed a Salvation Army Santa in front of a Kmart. He was swiftly put to justice and executed not long after that. But sadly, the damage was done. The children were never the same. Santa had forever ruined Christmas. A Bloody Christmas by Horror Queen 1212. Corey Parker was a good boy of just 6 years old. He always did his chores and played nicely with the other kids on his suburban street. Corey was in a state of joyfulness. You see, it was Christmas Eve, and he was sure that he had earned a place on the nice list. Still, even the best little boys misbehave a little. When it was time for bed, Cody let himself be tucked in by his mom and dad and feigned sleep until he was certain that they were asleep themselves. He then tiptoed downstairs and sat on the living room couch by the tree. He was going to meet Santa Claus for himself. He hoped Santa would forgive him. He just wanted to show him the cookies that he had helped bake himself. The milk and cookies were still there, and there were no presents under the tree. Corey sighed with relief as he realized that he hadn't missed Santa. He sat on the couch for what felt like a lifetime, but was really less than an hour. He kept his eyes trained on the large fireplace, adorned with stockings, just ready to be filled with goodies. He had almost drifted off to sleep when he heard the tapping. He jumped up and looked into the chimney, but didn't see anything. The tapping continued, and he realized that it wasn't coming from the chimney, but the front window. Timidly, Corey walked up to the window and peered into the night. His eyes filled up with amazement. Standing at the window was Santa Claus. He was tall with rosy cheeks and a big white beard. Over his shoulder was a large red sack, filled with who knows what kinds of treasures. "Santa!" Corey exclaimed. "It's me! It's Corey! I'm sorry I didn't stay in bed, but I had to meet you. Please forgive me?"
Oh! Why, of course, Corey. Santa could never be mad at you. Say, why don't you open the door and let me in? My elves have worked hard on your gifts,"
he said with a shuffle of his bag. Corey nodded and smiled. He walked up to the door cheerfully and was just about to open it when a nagging feeling stopped him. Corey's mom had always said that when he had a bad feeling, it was his guardian angel telling him that something was wrong. "Santa," Corey said through the door, "why didn't you come down the chimney?" Something felt wrong about this.
Ho! It's a long story, Cody. I'll tell you when I get inside.
Corey felt his stomach drop. Had Santa just called him Cody? The real Santa would never get his name wrong. He had an idea. "Santa," he asked, "did you bring me the Hot Wheels set that I asked for?" Corey waited with bated breath.
Why, of course I did. Let me in so I can give it to you.
Corey felt sick. If this was the real Santa, Then he would know that Corey had asked for roller skates for Christmas. Whoever this was, it wasn't Santa. Corey slowly backed away from the door before running up to his room. All the while, he ignored the man calling out to him. He ran into bed and buried himself deep into the covers and squeezed his eyes shut. He stayed that way until he fell asleep. The next morning, Corey awoke to the sound of sirens on his street. He ignored the gifts piled high under the tree and ran to his parents, who were looking out of the window in horror. When they noticed him, they shut the blinds and put on fake smiles, but Corey could tell that they were shaken. They never let him see the mutilated bodies of the Stevenson family lying in a neat row across their lawn. The next week, the police held a conference to discuss the case. Everyone in the house had been murdered, including Corey's friend Billy. What baffled the police was that there was no forced entry into the house. It was almost as if someone had just let the killer in. I'm Through with Christmas by the Prowler. I think I've had just about enough of Christmas. My name's Timmy McGinty, age 10, and I've survived a lot of horrible Christmases with nothing to show for it. From suffering the cruelties of Santa's minions, Black Billy and his black goat's festive udder juice, and his back-hatched chocolate Christmas cookies, and Stoolzabub and his chocolatey festive surprises of moist fudge-dripping Christmas trees and unforgettable sickening holiday treats. Then there was the horrible Christmas of Mad Nick the Killer Santa, who killed my parents, chopped them up and adorned our Christmas tree with their body parts, and wrapped the rest up as presents for under the tree. What a lovely thing that was to walk out to. Now, I've always been a good boy, minded my P's and Q's. Yes, there was that one time I tripped Jimmy Daniels down the stairs and he fell and broke his hip. But it's not my fault he had horrible balance. And yes, there was the time I tied Granny's chin hairs together in a knot. But once again, it's not my fault she decided to let herself go and not pick up the old Gillette razor and give herself a shave just because Grandpa Bartholomew died on her. Move on, I say, madame. So to summarize, I'm through. No need, Santa, to squeeze your wide, jolly ass down my chimney and prance around my living room. That's what is known as B&E. The old breaking and entering. Take that shit next door. From now on, keep your minions to yourself and your nice list high entrance standards away from me. For I give up. I'm through. Done with Christmas. You win. The Sleigh Ride by Kenneth0505. It was finally Christmas Eve, that magical night when Santa came to give presents to good children around the world. And Timmy had been especially good this year, doing anything and everything possible to be an outstanding member of society. As he crawled under the covers, he excitedly yelled, "Good night, Mom and Dad!" and shut his eyes tight, trying to force himself asleep. It took a while, but he finally dozed off with dreams of a new dirt bike. He was awakened by soft tugging on his shoulder. Could it be? He thought. Is it morning already? But as his eyes tried to focus, he realized it was still dark outside. Then the tugging started again. He rolled over and looked, and in a half-asleep stupor, couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was old St. Nick himself. He saw the shock on Tim's face and reassured him in a cheerful voice. "Come with me, young Tim. I have a surprise for you." Santa turned to the door, and Tim was right on his heels. He followed him through the house until they reached the fireplace. Santa then said in a voice so pleasant, "Take my hand, child, and don't be afraid. There is a tradition that I keep every year. The nicest kid I take for the night to help keep me awake on this long sleigh ride. And you, my boy, were the sweetest of all the children this year." With that being said, Timmy climbed right up in that seat beside the jolly old elf. It was amazing. From house to house, they flew, and Santa and he were having a grand time, laughing and talking. When Santa was done with a house, he would split the cookies and milk. Tim was having the time of his life when he looked up at Santa and exclaimed, "This is the best Christmas ever!" Then he turned his voice down a notch, looking into those kind old eyes. "Thank you so much for this wonderful night ride." Santa leaned down. Tim thought to whisper in his ear, but instead bit a chunk out of his neck. As he wiggled, squirmed, and tried to scream, Santa smiled with gore on his chin, laughed a hearty laugh, and said to Tim, "Sugar-filled snacks only keep me going for so long. Your body, though, will give me the ability to finish my night and spread Christmas cheer to every good boy and girl." Just as Tim's world started to fade to black, he heard the old elf one more time. My, I was right. You are a sweet boy. And don't think me a monster, but I need to feed on one child a year. That's how it has to be." I Don't Believe in Santa Claus. Author unknown. I don't believe in Santa Claus. I've always known he was just made up. Someone parents told their kids about just so they would behave during the holidays. Nonetheless, I was always grateful for the double gifts, one from my parents and one from Santa, and would wake up every Christmas morning with a gold and silver wrapped present at the foot of my bed, tagged "From Santa." This went on all the way through my high school years, and though by that time I started to feel this was highly unnecessary, I continued to play along. It was just my parents' way of spoiling me, as I was their only child. However, it had to stop eventually, and I soon had to leave for college. Christmas came while I was a busy college freshman, but I couldn't help wanting to visit home before the season was over. As I was traveling, however, I received a call from our neighbors telling me to come home immediately. I told them I was on my way, but was by then less merry and more anxious. As soon as I arrived home, I dropped my bags onto the snow and pushed past the policeman into my house. There, in the wreckage of the living room, lay the bloody and mangled bodies of my beloved parents. On the walls, and what looked to be written in blood, were the words, "Where is she?" Before the policeman pulled me away, however, I noticed a single untouched gift in gold and silver wrapping under the Christmas tree. I don't believe in Santa Claus, but I do believe in monsters. Christmas Yet to Come by Queenofscots. Twice in my life, I've managed to avert disaster because of a Christmas Eve dream. Both dreams started with a tall, hooded figure pointing at something I'm supposed to watch. The first dream came when I was 14, a car crash. I woke with a vague sense of unease and told my parents I didn't want to go to last-minute shopping with them. The crash killed them instantly. Devastated, I went to live with my aunt. The dream figure appeared again when I was 20, staying in a crappy little apartment in the city. This dream was about an explosion, and so real I felt heat baking me, even as I jolted awake. Full of dread, I grabbed a few things and ran out into the cold, dark Christmas morning. By the time I reached my aunt's house, it was on the news. A fire had blown through my apartment building, killing 7 people. That was exactly 2 years ago. The guilt is awful, but really, who would have believed me had I tried to warn them? And now, it's 4 a.m. Christmas morning. I had a dream last night, and I'm reminded of Ebenezer Scrooge and his 3 Christmas warnings from dream ghosts. This time, my dream ghost showed me a devastated world, whole cities laid bare by fire, a scorched and ashen planet. I saw not one living thing, plant nor animal, in this terrible vision. Ebenezer knew just what to do when he woke Christmas morning, to change his life and those of the people around him for the better. But despite my dream warning, I don't know where to begin to change things. On Christmas Day in the Morning by Queen of Scots. Steve! Oh, you got it! It's beautiful! Thank you so much! She's laughing with delight at her present, a cute but powerful handgun she'd admired on a recent trip they'd taken to a gun shop. Show me how to load it. Oh, I can't wait to try it out. She claps her hands, still clad in the goofy, jingly Christmas gloves he'd bought her on a whim, and laughs like a little kid. He loads it for her and hands it to her carefully. Now, we can go to the range tomorrow, and I'll show you how to shoot it. He smiles indulgently as she admires the little gun. Be careful with it now. You should probably take those silly gloves off so you can get a proper feel for it. Oh, but then my fingerprints will be on it. I told you, I can't wait to try it out. She coos, and, turning the gun towards him, she demonstrated that she really didn't need him to show her how to shoot. After all. Dark Christmas by MysteryisMyAllure. It was a cold, snowy Christmas Eve in the small town of Pineville. The streets were adorned with twinkling lights and festive decorations, and the smell of freshly baked cookies and hot cocoa filled the air. As the townspeople settled in for the night, excited for the festivities the next day, one family was awoken by a strange noise coming from the living room. Curious, the father went to investigate, and what he found sent chills down his spine. There, in the corner of the room, stood a figure draped in a dark cloak, with glowing red eyes and a twisted, sinister smile. The father tried to run, but it was too late. The figure lunged at him, its razor-sharp claws tearing into his flesh. The rest of the family heard the commotion and rushed to the living room, but it was too late. The figure had vanished, leaving behind only a trail of blood and the shattered remains of their beloved Christmas tree. The town of Pineville was never the same after that fateful Christmas Eve. The family was never heard from again, and no one dared to celebrate the holiday in their home again. As the years passed, the legend of the Christmas demon spread far and wide, a terrifying reminder to always be on guard, even on the most joyous of nights. All Souls Christmas Tree Farm by 1001 Nights. Lucy looked out of the window of the attic, where she would be sleeping over the next 4 months, and sighed with joy at the beautiful sight below. Beyond the farmhouse's front yard, where a handful of chickens were pecking around, lush vista of dark green firs spread out. The firs glinted under the early morning sun, as if already bedecked by the most delicate of Christmas ornaments. This was her new workplace. She couldn't contain herself, despite the gentle warning from Tatiana, the farm wife, about the souls trapped in the trees. She had to go and be among them. She was so happy to leave her stupid, busy city life. A wine-soaked evening, nursing a broken heart in front of her laptop, looking for something new, had led her to this rural pocket. She was so desperate to get away and find something physical to do, using my hands and body in nature, not stuck in this stupid office life obsessing over Nick. As she told her confused friends that Tatiana's remarks about the nursing home on the plot next to All Souls and their arrangement about the dying barely registered. The photos on the county website were stunning. She had only had that one phone conversation with Tatiana on a crackly line. Now, standing before the trees, inhaling that gorgeous fir scent, laced with the musk of the barns behind her, she knew she made the right decision. She could feel her heart heal as she stepped into the sun-dappled shade, the pine needles yielding beneath her feet. It was old people. That's what Tatiana said. The trees fed on the souls of the dying residents of the nursing home, slightly before they were dead. That's why the trees were so unbearably lush. Lucy glanced over where she could see the manor rising above the trees, its manicured grounds in stark contrast to the woods and the chicken-clucking yard. It was a beautiful old building. Incautiously, Lucy stepped in deeper. Reaching out, she touched the trunk of the fir, her skin delighting in its rough texture. Looking closer at the swirling pattern of the bark, she felt herself slipping into a meditative state, at one with nature. Something about the pattern tugged at her consciousness. A face scored with deep wrinkles, twisted in the dark wood, twisted in agony. Lucy stared harder, a rush of terror replacing the healing, meditative state of moments ago. The mouth moved, calling her. "Lucy," whispered the still breeze, touching her face. Her hand seemed to sink into the trunk. She couldn't see her fingers, held in a rough grip up to her wrist. "Lucy!" Tatiana's sharp call ripped the spell, and Lucy snatched her hand out and away from the tree. "Lucy, we do not go into the firs alone. I told you. Come, there are many chores." The sturdy older woman shoved Lucy in a not unfriendly way, and Lucy stumbled along with her, back to the chickens. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your overwhelming generosity. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness and Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. I want to thank all my listeners for your kindness, your encouragement, and your support. It means the world to me. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.